Good morning. Welcome. We hope you can hear this under the water. Here we go. Actually, I think they do have technology that you can listen to music under the water. I don't know how that works, but apparently that's a thing. So maybe she could do a screencast audio with that.
While swimming currents.
What was that?
Great way to start.
It is, right, I know. She's gonna be horrified when she starts listening to this. We're at 30 seconds in. Okay, and if you have any swimming jokes, feel free to throw them in as we go through this. All right, so starting with island hopping. Oh shoot, did Mr. Oh no, my bad. I'm sorry, stopping the Japanese. So, Battle of Coral Sea, and on the AP exam, you'll never get a question about a battle, but it's important to still have that context. So, by no means am I going to add a battle to the wall up here because you're never going to get a question about it, but just having that added context, I think is going to be helpful. The Japanese are going to be expanding in the Pacific, and they try to go as far south as Australia, as you can see down here. And in the Battle of Coral Sea, hence for the fact that it was fought in Coral Sea, that is actually prevented, and Australia even gets into the war. So this is very much a world war. It's fought on almost every continent with the exception, I guess, South America. Yeah, right? Well, if you include Antarctica. I don't know. Do you include Antarctica? I don't know. Emily, do you include Antarctica? No?
It's something.
Kick twice, and we can hear you. So that's important in terms of, I'm in a weird mood today, in terms of stopping Japan from expanding further south. A more pivotal battle is going to be the Battle of Midway. There's actually an interesting movie that was made on this in the 60s or 70s, because this is going to be a turning point. Once again, the Japanese are going to be stopped, and hence notice it's called Midway because it's essentially midway. Well, a little closer to Hawaii, but a strategic location where you can be conducting air raids and also refuel and come back to the island. So what this is going to do for the Allied powers is that they're going to do what's called island hopping, where you're going to be focusing on one island. So for example, you would bypass strongly held Japanese territories and then try to isolate them both by your navy as well as your air. So it's a coordinated effort there. After the Battle of Midway, Japanese are very much hurt there, 4 fewer aircraft carriers and over 250 planes destroyed. So certainly the tide is turning for the Allied powers. Also, the Japanese are going to attempt to invade Alaska through the Aleutian Islands, which are these islands right off the coast of Alaska. Apparently they're very beautiful to visit. So this will be really the only U.S. soil type of invasion that Japan is going to attempt to invade. I mean, you could consider Pearl Harbor an invasion, but it only lasts 2 hours. In this case, with the Aleutian Island campaign, they're trying to invade Alaska. It's going to be unsuccessful, but this is the last time that Japan is really going to be on the offensive, and the U.S. is going to eventually begin to go on the offensive. So, I mean, if you look at some of this propaganda that comes out, heavily racist. I mean, depicting the Japanese as rats. Notice that very negative stereotype that you can see depicted there. Again, equating them as rats. It's very interesting. I mean, not that I'm saying that the Americans are as guilty as the Germans for doing this, but with Hitler and Joseph Goebbels, who was Hitler's war propaganda minister, he depicted Jews as rats. I mean, sort of the same mentality that you're depicting what the enemy is, in this case, as a rat, but nevertheless. Here are more, I mean, even just using the word Jap, which is very much a slur. So, Dr. Seuss gets in on the action, not just about child books today, also about discrimination. Not a nice thing. So, as I mentioned earlier with island hopping, that after taking the Battle of Midway, very important in terms of refueling, gaining resources, and this is going to enable the Allies to envision the goal of eventually taking Japan. In addition, as we see the Allies in one of their earliest offensive victories is at Guadalcanal, in which the Japanese are defeated on their own land. So again, the tide is turning as a result of the Battle of Midway, and it's going to continue from there. So again, with island hopping, you're going from one island to another, and you're trying to isolate Japanese stronghold islands by air, as well as using naval power. In particular, in the Philippines, MacArthur is known for going into the Philippines and then returning a month later after Japan's navy is essentially destroyed in the Battle of Leyte Gulf. And this is going to obliterate the Japanese navy. And this is where you also begin to see the use of kamikaze pilots, where the Japanese were so desperate, they have few resources. Kamikaze, tactics were actually relatively effective in some sense, that it could destroy, it could sink a warship, and it only took one plane and one person. So, I mean, I don't want to equate it entirely to this, but if you think of it like a suicide bomber, you blow yourself up, certainly that's a casualty for one side, but on the other hand, you're destroying something and you're potentially killing tens, if not hundreds of people. So that was the strategy that Japan is espousing at this point. And MacArthur, of course, is going to retake the Philippines. Now, as I mentioned earlier in class, these are two major islands that are going to be taken from the Japanese, and notice how close they are to mainland Japan. So you're not only, Midway was a very strategic island, but even Iwo Jima in Okinawa. What's really interesting is the fanaticism on the part of the Japanese, that whole idea of culture, that it's better to die than to be taken as a prisoner of war, and as a result they fought to their last breath. And also in Iwo Jima, this is where you get that iconic picture of the flag raising, if you've seen it before. Quite a powerful picture of resilience after a very bloody battle for Americans. But certainly, I mean, if you look at the numbers here, 7,600 Americans versus 110,000 Japanese killed, you definitely are showing a lot of American strength there. And here's another closer look at that iconic picture. All right, last slide here. The atomic bomb, which we read about in class to some extent, we know that Hitler has already surrendered. Mussolini is executed, although Hitler didn't really surrender. He committed suicide, but the Germans are going to surrender. And as a result, VE Day occurs. Now we're focused on Japan. What is going to effectively end that side of the theater is going to be the atomic bomb. $2 billion. You have between 60,000 and at one point as high as 100,000 people being employed on this project that was commissioned under FDR. And one of the reasons they are going to use it is they know if there's a mainland invasion, it's going to be very bloody for the Americans. Can you save lives by just dropping the atomic bomb, hitting factories, and unfortunately a product of war, hitting civilians, but also people in the military as well. So this, what was known as the Manhattan Project, was this collaborative effort among scientists, everyone including Einstein, but it was led by J. Robert Oppenheimer, who are going to develop this first use of nuclear weapons. So we will leave you on a cliffhanger as to whether or not the atomic bomb is used for tomorrow's discussion. Any questions, concerns? Yes?
Did the atomic bomb get Japan surrender? Did Japan surrender?
Not after the first one.
Okay.
After the second one, they really didn't have a choice. Yeah. Any swimming questions? Swimming questions? No? Okay. How long can you hold your breath underwater for?
As long as your coach makes you. Wall.
Really? You have to actually stay underwater for a certain amount of time?
She'll have us jump in and then blow all of our air out and then float up to the top, and then we have to swim at 25.
Oh, that sounds awful. All right. Good luck, Emily. See you Tuesday? Whenever you get back.